Josh Morgan here from Momentum Productions, and today I want to go over something that is very, very important, and that is color correction. I've been getting a ton of emails on how to properly color correct footage. Now, before we get into the real juicy parts of this video, I need to tell you about the camera settings I've been using. I've been filming with the Sony a7S using the picture profile number 7. This is the flattest look the camera can produce. Now, what is the benefit in shooting in picture profile 7, also known as S-Log? Well, this is the camera's flattest looking picture that it can produce. Using a flat profile like this, the camera is able to shoot at its native ISO, its native resolution, and this is how it gets the most data. Now, when I say data, I'm specifically referring to the amount of color the camera sees. I know the picture looks flat, but because it looks flat, it gives us the opportunity to manipulate colors to make it look very, very cinematic or very vivid, colorful, however you may want it to look like. In this case, I've been shooting for an e-bike company and I want to make this look really, really cinematic. First off, I'm using Final Cut Pro. This tutorial is also good for Adobe Premiere. Final Cut Pro and Adobe Premiere both have the standard color correction plugins. They use highlight, midtone, and shadow colors. If you're in Final Cut and you're using the color correction plugin, you'll have 3 different options here. You'll be able to mess with the exposure, saturation, and color. Now, if I'm going for a really nice cinematic or dramatic look, I like to apply a little bit of a bluish tint. So I'm going to mess with the blue slider here. Adding a little bit of a blue tint there already adds a cinematic touch. Now, some other color correction plugins don't have this option. They usually only have 3 different types of sliders: highlights, midtones, and shadows. Now, I will be also using another plugin that will be a lot easier to understand. Final Cut is a little bit different when it comes to color grading. Premiere Pro is a little bit more professional when it comes to color correction. I mean, its basic plugin is more professional than Final Cut's. So what I will do, I will later on in this tutorial be using Red Giant's Colorista 3, and that is a professional color grading plugin. But for right now, let's use the standard Final Cut plugin and see what we can do with it, and see if we can achieve a cinematic look. So I added a bluish tint. Now I would like the rims to pop out more. These orange rims fall into the category of being midtones, so let's see what we can do with that in saturation. Here are the midtones. Here's the midtone slider. Let's bump it up just a little bit, and let's see if that will help the rims pop out more. It does, slightly, but for some odd reason, the blue gets a little bit bluer. So let's see if we can tone it down. And we're actually only given one more option, and that is exposure. So unfortunately, we are not given too many options with Final Cut's standard color correction plugin. Here is Colorista 3. I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop it onto the clip. I removed the standard color correction plugin already. So as you can see here, we have our 3-way color correction. This is what I'm really used to seeing in professional editing software: our highlights, midtones, and shadows. This is standard, and I wish that Final Cut incorporated this into its own standard color correction software, but it didn't. Not only do we have these 3 color sliders here, but we also have an exposure slider here, which actually works better than Final Cut's. It actually looks like you are dropping down the f-stop using the slider rather than just simply darkening the footage, if that makes any sense. As I scroll down here, we can mess with the saturation slider, hue, highlights, shadows. We can even make things more vivid and pop. This actually adds a little bit of sharpening, which I really like. You can add a little bit of vignetting, which actually dims down the corners of the footage. And we can recover some of the highlights that might be a little overexposed, especially in this area here. And when I scroll lower, we have hue and saturation adjustment color panels here. And we can also mess with curves. First off, I want to recover some of my highlights. So I'm going to go up to this highlight recovery slider, and let's bump it up. And as you can see, I am recovering some of my highlights here. a little bit of detail seems to be reappearing from the overexposed area here from the sun. Since I think the highlights are a little too bright, I want to just tone it down just a little bit. Let's see if I can preserve some of that overexposed footage. So I'm going to drop down the highlights. That's about good. And I want the midtones to have a little bit of a bluish tint. So I'm going to select this panel and have it go a little bit towards the bluish color. And I'm going to adjust with the main slider up here. All right. Shadows. I would like the shadows to be a little bit darker than what they are. So I'll go ahead and do that. And I want to add a little bit of saturation. So let's bump up the saturation. This way the rims and midtones will pop a little bit more. See here how the orange is popping more? It's great, isn't it? Awesome. So now let's look at the before and after. This is with Colorista turned off, and this is with Colorista turned on. It's nice. It seems a little bit too dark, so let me actually brighten up the shadows just a tad bit more. There we go. If you recall from earlier in the tutorial, I used Final Cut Pro's standard color correction plugin. I was able to add a little bit of a bluish tint using that color corrector. So let's go ahead and do that. Drag and drop it back onto the clip. We're going to go ahead and mess with the color here. I'm going to bump up the bluish tint there. Here we go. That's a nice bluish tint. And I still don't like how bright the overexposed areas are. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to Colorista 3 and see if I can fix that at all. So I'm going to bring down the highlights some more. And this actually helped out. I'm going to go back to Final Cuts Editor and increase the saturation just a little bit. I'm going to mess with the midtones here. I want the orange to pop, but because the orange is popping, the green is going to be popping too. Now, if you're like me and you want your color to be really, really nice, I have a ton of different color correction plugins for Final Cut. I like to use the Hawaii color corrector, so I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that onto my timeline. I'm going to click on Commit Grade. That'll make it full screen. I'm going to leave the on-screen controls off. And now I want to play with the contrast. It's a little bit too light in the shadows, and just want to bump up the contrast a little bit just to make the rims even pop some more. It'll make it more cinematic. Look at that. That looks nice. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to add a little bit of sharpness as well. So the rims are starting to pop. Now, I am not liking how saturated the trees are. I need to find a way to desaturate the trees because that can really distract the viewer away from the bike. And the bike is what we really want to showcase in this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add what is called a color mask. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to Final Cut Pro's standard plugin for color correction. Since they offer a color mask option, I'm going to be going with that, since most of you probably don't have all of these other color plugins. Here it is. Let's drag and drop a new color correction onto the clip. Let's drag it up to the top. And after we've done that, we can go ahead and make our mask. To apply the mask, all you have to do is put your mouse over the effect, click on the square button here, and we're going to add a color mask. Go ahead and select the green color and drag the mouse to select the range. Your mask will be created. Once the mask is created, you can actually adjust it like you would using the color correction plugin without masking. So I want to desaturate the greens, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the midtones and drop down the saturation. As you can see, the green is slowly starting to blend in with the background, and it doesn't really pop as much. That's what I want. I want the bike and the main actor here in the commercial to stand out. I don't want the background to stand out more than the center. Now it looks like really nice color correction. So let's take a look at the before and after. I'm going to go ahead and deselect all of my color correction plugins. As you can see, this is what it looks like raw out of the camera. Then I'm going to select and apply my color correction plugins. Look at that. That looks fantastic. I really love the look of this. If you want professional color grading, you need to have these color correction plugins. Colorista 3, Hawaii Color, and the standard color correction plugin that comes built in with Final Cut Pro. All of these plugins are going to help you achieve the best look possible because each of these plugins gives you a different look. And they're obviously missing features that other plugins have. So keep that in mind. But for now, if you only have the standard color correction plugin that comes with Final Cut, it does a decent job. It just doesn't make the color pop as much as Colorista does, which is why I love using Colorista. And Hawaii Color adds that really nice contrast that I don't think Colorista does a great job of doing. That is my reasoning for using all of these color correction plugins for this clip. I hope you've enjoyed this color correction tutorial. If you have any questions, please comment below. Also, check out my website at www.capturethemomentum.com. Please also sign up to my free newsletter on my website. And if you are a company and you would like me to do a review on your products, please email me at info@capturethemomentum.com. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you in the next video. I can't wait to see what you guys create. Take care. Bye-bye.